Well, good day to you. It is April the 30th, and as Mr. Rogers used to say, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I hope you are having a fantastic day as well. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name is Gary Willing, and what do we talk about? Well, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, but it could be said that what we're talking about is the return of the Christ, or the coming of the Imamati, or Kalki Avatar, or the World Teacher. However you want to put it, we discuss why is the teacher returning now? Why is it important that he's doing so at this moment in time? And of course, what does it mean for you? Now, if you've listened to these videos before, even if it's been months and months or even years since the last time you've listened to a video here, I do want to acknowledge something about that, because there are people who listen to this channel, and like I said, might take them months to come back and listen to another video. Other people might dive into this information and start to investigate it for yourself. You might find yourself as one of those people who like to ask questions, and that does help us focus in on what we want to talk about and learn from and inquire about for ourselves and so forth. And even those people who comment, and I'm putting this in parentheses, even if you don't agree with me, and there are people who put comments all the time, Maitreya is the Antichrist, even though they've never heard Maitreya speak on TV. They've never recognized him. They've never experienced his love. They're convinced just by hearing people like myself talk about him that he must be the Antichrist or so forth because he doesn't fit their expectation and so forth. I want to say this. It is really proof that what one of these masters said is true. Humanity is ready for the teacher to come back. And I've put up these videos for a couple years now, and it's interesting to note, and there are several people, it's not just one or two, it's quite a few, who have made comments over the years that I've put these videos up, and they might get fed up with what I said, and they get totally turned off, and then they put this nasty comment up, and how stupid I am, and how I don't know what I'm talking about, and how they're never, ever, ever going to come back to my channel because of that. And then, a few months later, maybe even a year later, they'll pop back up and comment. And most of the time, their comments when they come back are a tad bit softer than they initially were. Other times they can be just quite as harsh, right? Either way, it doesn't matter, right? It shows that people are starting to be interested in this information. It might not be viral yet. It might not be all over the airwaves and all over the internet as of this moment in time or the recording of this video, but there is a growing interest in the truth about this information because it is latent within the hearts of all of us. It's on the tip of our tongues. The need for peace, for justice, for sharing, for the ending of hunger, for saving our planet. We're all wanting it in our own way. Even those people who call him the Antichrist are looking for, longing for, praying for their awaited teacher to come back. So it's all evidence that what we're saying here is true. And people will comment too, Gary, you need to prove this information to me, or I'm never coming back, or whatever like this. And it kind of makes me chuckle because the proof is right underneath your nose, and it has been the entire time. Now, there have been times in my life that I've asked the teacher to, perform a miracle or have one of these space brothers show up for my family, which he did. And in every instance, they either missed it or they totally rejected the miracle, for instance. And I, like, the one example was I was driving to see my family on the 4th of July in Charlotte, and I asked Maitreya if he could make one of the space brothers show one of their ships for my family, and which he did. And my brother, who's an engineer, looked, after everybody that looked up saw it as a UFO, right? Even my brother's neighbor, who I don't even know his name, never met the guy, looked up, oh my God, that's a UFO, right? My brother looked up and goes, nah, that's not a UFO. UFOs don't exist. Totally missed it, right? So, and then other times I've asked Maitreya to show up for my family, and they didn't recognize him as Maitreya, but they saw something quite extraordinary in the event, right? But in any event, right, the proof of what I'm saying is right underneath your nose and has been all along. It's the many miracle signs that have been going on that are teaching us that we are one. They're happening in all walks of life, to every single religious group, and those people of no particular religious faith. And so if they're happening to every single group and of no, people of no particular faith, and they're leaving people with a greater sense of hope, then it's life's way of showing us that we are one, really, if you look at it. So that's evidence for you right there. And in the intro and the outro of every one of my videos are images of these miracles. You can search for them online. You can see what I'm saying is true, that these events have been going on for decades, and they've been happening to, like I said, every single religious group. And even if you don't believe they're a miracle per se, you can't help but look, if you're honest with yourself, after you see these images or whatever, videos of these miracles and so forth, you can't help but go, this is strange. This stuff doesn't happen every day, right? Or it shouldn't happen every day in the normal world, for instance, right? And there are scientists that try to disprove it and so forth, and that's their duty to try to do that. But either way, these people who have experienced these miracles are being left with a greater sense of hope because of these miracles. And healing waters, crosses of light, being have healing qualities, and people have been healed from terminal illnesses because of just being in the presence of these miracles. People have been in awe of UFO sightings, and they started to wake up to the fact that there's life outside of this little planet called Earth, and so forth. And what does that all mean, right? And so it is, like I said, it's showing us, it's waking us up to the truth that we are one, which is the most important thing that any one of us could really do and look at and manifest in our own lives for sure, right? But then the other thing too is, and if you, like I said, if you totally reject these miracles, the other thing that is proof that we are one, that's evidence of what we're talking about here on this channel, are the problems that are facing humanity on a daily basis. And it's a lot easier to believe those than it is the miracles, for sure, right? We are living in an environment that's being polluted at an alarming rate. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, what kind of car you drive, how big your house is, or if you're living on the street. And it doesn't matter what country you're in. You can't deny that we have been polluting our environment, and in a very real sense is making us all sick without exception, right? Now, why am I saying that just that one problem, which is just one example of what I'm talking about here, is proof that we are one? Well, for one thing, it's affecting every one of us, right? The other thing is it's going to take every single one of us doing something, even if it's just a little bit, in our own way, to solve that problem. And then if you broaden your horizons out a little bit and look at it, if we do not do something about the environmental problem, well, then we're all going to suffer the same fate eventually. So, that's proof that we are one, right? But if you look at the injustice that's going on all around the world in every country, right? Like I'm in America. And people for decades, but it's been in this climactic point here over the past year, people marching for racial justice, right? And if even that was solved in the United States, right, and was perfect, and then there's no more racial inequality and racial injustice just in the United States, well, what would happen? Does that mean that there's no more injustice anywhere in the world? Well, what about people who are dying every day without any kind of voice, without anybody hearing them, without anybody seeing them die?
Of hunger.
It means nothing to people that don't see it, and they're dying in a world of plenty. Is that not a crime in our midst? Of course it is. We have the food, we have the ability to ship it over. It would just take a little bit of energy to do that. And we could solve hunger immediately if we did this, but yet we don't. Because we don't see it, we don't care, right? Well, we have to do something about that too as well. Because there's only a certain amount of time that those living in those poverty-stricken nations are going to put up with it before they start striking out, and they actually already have. And that's the reason why we're living in a world that's destabilized politically. We have terrorism going on. This is all because of the economic injustice that's going on in the world as well. So we have to tackle that as well. And then there are other problems too that are facing humanity that we have to tackle together and so forth. But those are the two big ones, right? And so they're telling us that we are one. They're telling us that we need to do something about it. So even if you don't believe what I'm talking about the teacher coming back with his group of disciples called the Masters of Wisdom, it doesn't matter. Even if you want, stay a Christian if that's the case, but do something. Help us all by doing something about SOPs saving our planet. It's the most important thing that any one of us could do. And if we did that, we would see that we would start to help the problem, really. You know what I mean? Now, looking at oneness, right? If it is true, and like I said, I do think it's true because the miracles and our problems are proving to us that we're one. But if it is true that we are one, is it possible or necessary to manifest it here on planet Earth? Well, the teachers laid out this very, very simple step to not only manifesting oneness on planet Earth, but also pointing out the necessity of doing so, right? He says, without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. And without peace, there could be no future. So he's saying that our very survival is going to depend on whether we create peace or not. Now, lastly, I want to leave us with this when it comes to the introduction, and it's very, very important for us to look at this, and it's very, very important to be reminded of this when we listen to these videos, is how important the principle of sharing is. Okay? It cannot be understated in that regard, because it is necessary for creating justice. Now, let me explain why. I can tell you, I can prove that too for those of us who need proof. It's in the history books, but it's not really taught. But the Marshall Plan is proof that sharing does bring about goodwill and a little bit of peace amongst these nations. And it was done not long after World War II for about 4 years, where the United States gave excesses of what they had freely to Western Europe in order to help rebuild Europe. Now, even the historians that know about the Marshall Plan don't talk about this. They're not seeing it in this way, but it did bring about goodwill amongst these nations. It's not perfect peace, but the nations that participated in the Marshall Plan, none of them have attacked one another. They've resolved their problems peacefully. And even the individuals that live in these nations can travel easier to those nations and so forth. And it's evidence that sharing can bring about peace. And like I like to say, as a question, and this is the most important question that you can take from these videos, really, and inquire for yourself about it. If the Marshall Plan, which lasted for 4 years with just a handful of nations, created peace 70 years and is still creating peace 70 years after it ended, what would life look like on this planet for all of us if every single nation participated in a global Marshall Plan for the next 70 years and it never ended? So it's a very important question that we should inquire about within ourselves, quietly, sincerely, and look at it. And then look at how can you personally manifest oneness and peace in your own life. So hopefully that helps. Now, I do have questions. I love questions because they help us to formulate and answer, and kind of dive into this information for ourselves. You can post your question as a comment. I do have an email question to cover in this video. And but you can also, like I said, look at the links in the description of these videos and answer your own questions for yourself as well. And that's another way of really taking the necessary step into learning more about this information and not just being turned off about it. I understand when people are turned off about this information. I was initially turned off about it too. And it took me a month or so before I started to kind of warm up to it. Other people, it might take them a little bit longer, right? And it might take you a little bit longer, but don't just reject it outright. Have a little bit of an open mind to it and see, do your own investigation. And then after that, if you don't believe it, well, then turn these videos off and never come back. And then I guess I just didn't know what I was talking about. And, but no harm, no foul. You haven't investigated. You haven't wasted too much time in it. You know what I mean? So now, first of all, the person that asked this question, sent me another email saying, please, I didn't need to answer this question because it seemed a little, people who didn't know this information might not understand what the question was about. But actually, I kind of liked the question. And the question was, if Maitreya was the first out of earthly humanity to become a master, who was manning the hierarchy prior to that? I would guess Space Brothers, which ones, where from, our solar system only or elsewhere. Did Benjamin Creme's master ever talk about this? And yes, he did. And believe it or not, you actually answered your own question. They were the Space Brothers. They came from our solar system, but they also came from other solar systems as well. And a good example would be Sai Baba. And if you look at the background photo of this video, at the very bottom left, in that black and white photo of that man smiling at you, that's Sai Baba. And he is a cosmic Christ from another solar system that has been here helping us for a few hundred years or so, has had 2 of his 3 incarnations as Sai Baba, and will eventually come back in the 3rd time as a teacher as well. So you can watch videos, you can see him perform some of these miracles in front of the camera and so forth. And anyway, see for yourself. But anyway, he's an example of a space brother not from our solar system, but most of the space brothers that have helped us since the beginning of mankind on this planet have come from our higher planets, Venus, Mars perhaps, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, maybe a couple others, but for the most part, Venus. Venus is the relationship that the humanity has on Venus to ours is very close, believe it or not, and they've always kind of watched out over us for eons. I mean, really since the beginning of time. And a couple things about that. So first, if you're new to this channel and you're listening to this, you're like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Life on Venus? I've seen photos of that. There's no truth to that. And that's pretty much a legitimate way of looking at it, because the pictures that are coming back from Venus and Mars and so forth, there's no life, right? It's just, there's nothing on it. But truth be told, if we were to have the ability to see the etheric planes, we would see that there is humanity living on not only Venus, not only Mars, but every single planet in the solar system, actually. Now, there are 7 levels of physicality for above gas. It was proven scientifically, actually, and it was a scientific discovery that was quite extraordinary, but was missed by, I'd say, probably everybody except for just a few people. But it was a gentleman named Wilhelm Reich. I'd probably say it was probably over 100 years ago. I don't have the date in front of me, but it's been a long time. Discovered a energy field around all things. He called it the orgon. And what he stumbled across was, like I said, it was quite an extraordinary discovery of the lowest of the high of these levels called the etheric. And so he saw it as just one plane, but there was actually 4 planes altogether. And the humanity on these higher planets is living and their whole existence on one or other levels of these of the etheric planes. And so, for instance, there's evidence of UFOs, and they're coming from Venus, they're coming from Mars, Jupiter, Saturn mainly, but mainly from Venus and Mars. And according to Benjamin Creme, who is the spearhead of this information, if we could see the etheric planes at any moment in time, we would see thousands of maybe or hundreds of spaceships flying in our atmosphere at any given time. But we can't see it because we don't have the etheric. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't taste it, you can't hear it, so therefore it's not there, but it's there, right? And so when these space brothers want to make themselves known and appear to us, they simply lower their vibration down for us to, and then it's easier for us to see them. And then when they want to, disappear, I guess, they just raise their vibration up. It's just that simple to them. And so that's why, when you study about UFOs, right, and there's a lot of people who perhaps have watched a lot of science fiction movies, so their imagination's running wild. So they think that these UFOs are coming from another dimension and coming through wormholes, and that's why they can disappear the way that they do, or maybe a different time perhaps or something. I don't know. You get all sorts of different interpretations, but the truth is that they're really just raising and lowering their vibration to one of the other levels of the etheric planes. And then it will eventually be known to every one of us about these etheric planes, and the truth of the physicality of 7 planes instead of 3. So just because our scientists don't see it like that, don't see it under the microscope, doesn't mean it's not true. But now, to get to your question, Maitreya, yes, was the first one of us to become a master. And he did it because he never wasted a lifetime. And we all have thousands upon thousands of lifetimes before we become a master. And it's been said that Maitreya, in every one of his lifetimes, he made, even if it was just a little bit of progress, he made some kind of progress in that lifetime. That's why he was able to progress as fast as he did. Most of us waste countless lifetimes, But eventually, you make a little progress, and then you waste a couple lifetimes, and you make a little progress, and you make a little that kind of thing. So, he didn't sprint through it. It was just, slow and steady kind of won the race kind of deal. But, anyway, time is eternal anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But he was the first of our, like I said, of our evolution to become a master eons and eons and eons ago. And then since then, there have been more of our evolution, or of our planetary humanity becoming masters as time went on and so forth. But most of the masters and most of the higher disciples that we've seen throughout history aren't even coming from our own evolution at this point. They fell from another planet because they didn't make the grade, and they had to join our evolution. So they kind of were starting the race a little, maybe halfway to the finish line, or 3/4 of the way to the finish line. So that's why they seem so much more advanced to us, because we're still kind of catching up to where they were. Right now, the other thing too is Jesus said in the Bible, "I am the Alpha and the Omega," and one way of interpreting what Maitreya said through him was he was the first of our humanity to become a master, but also eons and eons and eons from now, when all of us have become masters and then have taken even the higher initiations after mastery, and are taking the last of the initiations that you can take in this solar system, he's going to come back and finish off and be the last of our humanity to take that higher of the highest initiations that you can take on this planet. So he's the Alpha and the Omega. The other way of looking at it could be what Maitreya talks about, the self, where when you identify totally with the self, you don't identify with the individual personality that we have come to know and love so much, and we identify totally with that which is known as the self, which is beyond consciousness, which is really the Alpha and the Omega too. So when Jesus said, I and my Father are one and the same, that's what he was talking about, not some bearded man in heaven somewhere. It was the universality of the self, which is beyond consciousness. But anyway, so hopefully that answers that question, and I'm sorry, but I didn't do what you said the second go around. I went ahead and answered it anyway, so hopefully that helps. Now, the next question, this person asked, and I commented back saying that I'd already recorded the video for today, which I did, but then I kind of changed my mind and I wanted to answer this question in this one, so I re-recorded the video. So, how to connect with Maitreya, please tell me. Okay, so the link in the description, and I put the link in the response to this question, will take you to the Share International page with the hand of Maitreya, one of the many miracle signs that have happened. Now, this one is probably the lesser known of all of them, but believe it or not, is the most beneficial out of all the miracles that have gone on, really. And what happened was, there was a woman whose son was involved with this work in Spain. She didn't necessarily believe it, but she had known about it and she was slightly open to it, but that was about it. And she had an apartment in Barcelona, and she had some cleaning people come and clean the whole house, or the whole apartment. Well, the next day she went into the second bathroom that she hardly ever went into, and on the mirror was this handprint. It wasn't a dirty smudge of a handprint, and you can see the image if you go to the Share International website, but it looks 3D. It looks like the Shroud of Turin looks, like a negative 3D image of a hand on this mirror. Well, she didn't know much about it. She thought it was maybe one of the cleaning people that kind of put their hand on the mirrors or wiping down the counter, and so she wiped it off. Well, sometime later after that, maybe a day or two later, it reappeared, and nobody else had been in their apartment. She was like, this is weird. So she contacted her son. Her son reached out to Benjamin Creme, who was still alive at the time, and Maitreya said to Benjamin Creme to get back to him. So it was kind of like a he said, she said kind of chain. But yes, that is, Maitreya said to tell this man, to tell his mother, yes, that was my hand that I put on the mirror, and please don't wipe it off again, because I'm not going to put it back on. Right. So he gave her one shot, and gave her, basically gave her a second chance with it, but there wouldn't be a third chance. So he took a picture of it. It was published in Share International not long after this happened. Now, Benjamin Creme talks about it, and you can watch a video on Share International or even on YouTube talking about the hand of Maitreya and what the implications are and what does it mean for the person who sees it. But it's really amazing about this miracle is you don't have to go and stand in front of it. You only have to look at an image of it. So you can take a screenshot on your phone, or you can download the PDF file of it or something like that on your computer, and it will work the exact same way. Other miracles like the healing waters, you can't just drink your own water, and that's the same as drinking the healing waters at Tlacote, Mexico. You got to get that water some kind of way, right? You either got to go there or something like that, right? Or have it brought to you, or go to Ainsworths Pharmacy and get one of the tablets. Or if you were to go to see a cross of light in one of these windows that look like holograms that have holographic kind of crosses in these windows that have healing qualities, you have to physically stand in front of the window. You can't just see an image of it. But this hand of Maitreya, according to Maitreya himself, is the closest that he can be to any one of us before he's out known for who and what he is in the world. And you can ask for his help if you just look at it, ask for him to help you in some kind of way. The help might not come the way you think. It might not. But sometimes if you're very specific and, really, I think Maitreya has never said this, so, take it as my own interpretation of it, please, but the more faith you have in it, the more it will work, and just like Jesus said in the Bible, if you have faith as big as a mustard seed, you can ask that mountain to move. And that, of course, was a parable of what faith can do, right? But if you look at the hand of Maitreya and just look at it and ask for help, if you're very specific, you might be surprised at exactly how it comes your way. And I like to use this as an example because this is one good example of it. Is I was starting to put these videos up some time ago, and there was an experience I had that actually did not happen to me. It happened to somebody that I worked with, but Maitreya was helping me on my cleaning job at the time. And she was the one that actually saw Maitreya, not me. But he would, like I said, he was helping me. And I was wanting to record this video, and I could not remember her name. And I looked at the hand of Maitreya, and I said, Maitreya, is there any way that you could help me remember this woman's name? I want to put this video up. I think it's a wonderful story that really, somebody with an open mind could look and go, wow, there's something extraordinary with this experience. And it's in Maitreya's playlist. I don't want to go through it, but you can listen to it if you want to. But I asked the hand of Maitreya what her name was. The next day, this woman came into where I worked, and I have not seen her since I stopped working, cleaning the building at this place, and it was in a different part of town, miles and miles away from where I work. But she came into where I worked, and I was like, what is your name? And she goes, my name is Carol. And she had no clue why I was so excited to see this woman at that time. But I was excited, A, because I had asked the hand of Maitreya for help, and it came that quickly, right? And Also, the fact that I've been wanting to know her name so I could put these videos up and share the story about Maitreya. So anyway, that is an example of how it would work. And you just have to use your common sense on it. You can't ask for something that he can't give, like you can't ask for somebody to love you, right? That's up for the person to love you, right? You can't ask for the winning lottery ticket. That's probably not going to help, right? But you could ask for, let's say, if you love somebody, you wanted them to love you, you could ask for detachment from that, right? And a lot, you could ask for their happiness maybe, and, a blessing to them or something like that. That's probably more of a healthier way of using the hand. But there have been people who have specifically asked for a specific amount of money, and it came their way through a relative or something like that. So you just have to kind of, be specific, but that's a way to connect with Maitreya easier than any other way. So hopefully that helps. You guys take care, and I want to start leaving you with this thought about what we talk about on this channel. Is I saw Maitreya years and years ago in Marietta, and he said to me one time, he goes, "You're going to see me on TV real soon, and we're going to change the world together." Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Thank you.